Hello, hockey fans, or should I be more specific and say hello, Canadian hockey fans? In French, bonjour, fans de hockey canadiens. The Western Conference starts later tonight, but I want to talk about Canada, mainly Canadian teams. So we've reached the Final Four, and again, there's one Canadian team left. And we all know that discussion. When there's one Canadian team left, the question gets asked, will they do it? Will they end the drought? Because it's been a minute since a Canadian team has hoisted Lord Stanley. As a matter of fact, it's been this long. And there they are, folks, the Montreal Canadiens, the 1992-93 Montreal Canadiens. That team finished third in the then named Adams division and managed to make a run out of it. They made a run out of it. They won their way through the Adams division's playoffs, the first two rounds. Taken out. Well, unfortunately, they took us out in round one, the Quebec Nordiques, which marked the final time that they faced each other, that the two teams faced each other in the playoffs under the old Battle of Quebec rivalry. And they took out the Sabres. And they took out the Sabres to advance to to advance to the Wales final, where they faced off against the Islanders and beat them out. The Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in a 5-game series against the LA Kings, which marked, of course, that year that was the Kings' first time in the final and Wayne Gretzky's only time in the final with the Kings. The Canadiens won their 24th league-leading 24th Stanley Cup, and there's Patrick Roy hoisting that cup. I still say the greatest goalie of all time, but 92 the 92-93 season, that marked the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. Like I said, it's been a minute. I was 8 years old and finishing second grade when they won, and as I said back then, the divisions and conferences had those historic names because that was the last time they would have them. The league went to geographic names a season later. A lot of teams weren't around yet. In fact, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim joined the league after this. Yeah, and So the Canadians hoisted that cup in '93, and so in the last 32 years, Canada has not really celebrated a cup, but they have had their chances, including most recently. Of course, a year after the Canadiens won, the Canucks made the final, famously losing the final in 7 games to the New York Rangers. After that, it would be 10 years until a Canadian team reached the Cup final, and it would be the Calgary Flames in 2004, the last year before the lockout. They lost in 7 games to Tampa. And then on the following year, which ended up being the 05-06 season, that was the following season, because the other season was wiped out. It was the Oilers who made it to the Cup final. They lost in 7 to the Hurricanes, the Carolina Hurricanes. In 07, it was the Ottawa Senators who lost in 5 to the Anaheim Ducks. 4 years later, the Vancouver Canucks made it back to the final, but they fell one win short, losing to the Boston Bruins. Of course, Vancouver shot Game 7 at home. It would be another decade before a Canadian team went to the Cup final. It would be the Canadiens, the last team who won it. That improbable run in 2021, and Tampa Bay just dominated them. This picture, that's the 2023-24 Edmonton Oilers. The most recent Canadian team to reach the Cup final. They won the Clarence Campbell Bowl, beating the Dallas Stars in the conference final, and of course we all know what happened in last year's final. They fell down 3 games to none, but almost reverse swept them, winning games 4, 5, and 6, but 7 just wasn't there for them. So the drought continued. Well, both droughts, because the Oilers haven't won since 1990. And the Oilers, again, they're the last Canadian team standing. Again, makes me wonder: are they Canada's team now? Because this is the fourth straight year that that the Oilers are the last Canadian team left. And yes, I know in 23, both they and the Leafs lost in round 2, but the Leafs lost in 5, and Edmonton lost in 6, so they didn't last a little bit long, so they were the last team left. So 4 years straight, they're the last Canadian team standing, and this is the third time in 4 years that they're in the conference final. And of course, they won the conference final last year. So once again, it all rests on the Oilers. Now, let me make one thing perfectly clear about this whole last Canadian team standing thing. You know, a lot of people, especially mainly Americans, some of us would think that. A lot of people would think, well, there's one Canadian team left in the playoffs. I would think all of Canada would pull for it, right? I mean, all the Canadian hockey fans would just root for that one team left, right? You know, they could do it for Canada, right? No. Mm-mm. That's not a thing. Hockey unity in Canada only exists in the Olympics and international play, like the Four Nations, like the Four Nations this year. That's when hockey unity exists in Canada. Okay. When it's the NHL, especially when it's Lord Stanley, it is every Canadian fan base for themselves. Okay. Every Canadian fan base for themselves. You think people in I don't know, Calgary are actually going to pull for their provincial rivals because Canadian unity? It's not a thing. No. Here's how pretty much Canadian team fan base relationships work. Flames and Oilers hate each other. Leafs hate the Sens, and pretty much everybody hates either Toronto or Montreal. That's pretty much how it works. So like I said, yes, the Oilers are the last team left again in Canada, but only Oilers fans will be pulling for them. Canucks fans, Jets fans, Leafs, Habs, Senators, and especially Flames fans, expect them all to pull for Dallas. They're all going to pull for Dallas. And even now with things between the U.S. and Canada being a little bit shaky thanks to a certain toupee wearing idiot, I'm pretty sure that those other they're not going to pull for Edmonton for this. They won't. So we'll see if the Oilers can pull it off. They're 8 wins away from the Cup. They were 8 wins away from the Cup last year, and they got 7 of them. They were this close last year. Will they beat Dallas again? Will they actually win the Cup this time? It would be their first with McDavid and Draisaitl, and their second since you-know-who got traded to L.A. all those many moons ago. So we'll see if the Oilers do it. We'll see. But that is my video. If you like this video, click the like button if you're on YouTube. Click subscribe if you want more. If you're on TikTok and Instagram, feel free to hit that follow button. And check out my story above. The link is my story about that Canadians team that won in '93. Check it out when you can. And I'll be back later tonight to recap Game 1 of the Western Conference Final.